Now that you know how to properly frame your clips, let's get into keyframing. The main keyframes we're going to be doing is anchor point and scale. To keyframe these, you're going to go to the stopwatch icon over here and click it. That'll make your first keyframe. Keyframes can be moved around just like your footage or your clips. You can also hold shift to lock it to the end of a clip or at your cursor. So let's keyframe anchor point and scale. Now that the keyframes are made, let's adjust our anchor point and make sure it's centered in the beginning. So for example, this clip is not centered at the end. So that's why we need a keyframe anchor point and scale so we can get this centered at the end as well. Go towards the end of your clip, but not all the way, or else you won't be able to see it. View the whole thing and let's adjust the scale. Now our footage is framed from beginning to end. Let's grab these two keyframes by dragging, clicking, and holding shift and putting them towards the end. To zoom in on your keyframes, you're going to use these mountain buttons right here. Zoom in, zoom out. We want to make sure these keyframes are exactly at the end, or else it'll be a little choppy when that footage ends. Let's see what it looks like. Now the footage is much better, but it needs a little more emphasis. So we're going to go back over here, grab our scale keyframe, bring it to our cursor, and we're going to scale in more to do zoom in. I usually like to increase it by 5s, but it all depends on how much you want to increase it for that clip. Another way to adjust your numbers is by clicking on it, going to the right. You can either add, subtract, multiply, or divide that number by a number you want. So say I want this to increase by 15 more, I would go plus 15, enter, and it would increase by 15. If I wanted to do half this number, I would go divided by 2. Let's keep this at 145 though. Let's see what it looks like with the zoom in. Zoom ins are good, and I would recommend doing either a zoom in or a zoom out for each clip. It gives it more drama and it makes the clip more interesting. To do a zoom out, you'll basically reverse these two keyframes. The one way you can do it is by going to your first keyframe and zooming it in, going to your last keyframe and zooming it out, or you can just drag this in the middle, drag your last keyframe to the beginning, and then put this at the end. I noticed that my frame wasn't in frame, so we're going to grab the anchor point and the scale, hold shift, bring it to the cursor, and we're going to zoom in on the scale. Make sure when you're working with keyframes that you only have one selected at a time. If you select both these keyframes and you adjust the scale on one of them, both of them will adjust. To deselect, you're going to click on a blank space and just select that one keyframe. Now that we know how to stabilize, frame, and keyframe, let's do it for all the footage. When I stabilize my footage, I try not to stabilize too many at a time. I usually go around 3. If you do more than 3 clips at a time for stabilizing, this will most likely freeze and you'll have to restart After Effects. Once you have all your clips stabilized and keyframed, you're going to notice that this isn't fully loaded. Instead of previewing it laggy, click on the cache before playback, press your spacebar, and it'll load all of it before it plays. Let's make sure our project's saved and let's preview this. The timeline's pretty full with a lot of keyframes everywhere. To close all the keyframes at once, make sure you're selected on nothing and press U. U is to open up all your keyframes. If we press it again, it'll open the keyframes. If you want to see all the keyframes on one clip only, click on that clip and press U. Another thing to save time, instead of clicking on this arrow and transform, these are the short keys for all these transform values. A is for anchor point, P is for position, S is for scale, R is for rotation, and T is for opacity. You can also view the keyframes on just one transform value by pressing these short keys. One thing you want to look out for when you're editing footage is you want to make sure they're all at the similar speed or they match the song. Some of these clips are a little too fast for the song and they don't flow well. So I'm going to show you how to do some slow motion. All my footage is recorded in 60 frames per second, so that means I could slow this down by 2. So for this clip right here, it's a little too fast of a transition and the clip's too fast in general, so I want to slow it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to that clip, click on the footage, right click, go to time stretch, and we're going to double this number. To make a clip faster, you can decrease this number, and to make it slower, you increase this number. So we're going to double the slowness of this clip by going to 200. Press OK. As you can see, your clip doubled in length. All you're going to do is go to your key marker and shorten this. Let's see what it looks like now. Looks a lot better, but there's one thing we need to fix. If we press U, we can see our keyframes are far out of sync. So let's bring this keyframe back by holding Shift and dragging it to our marker. Looks a lot better. Now I'm going to do this for a few more clips. Another trick you can do instead of slow motion is doing reverse footage. To do reverse footage, right click on your clip, go to time. You can either time reverse layer or you can time stretch and change this value to a negative. So if you wanted to do slow motion and reverse, we're going to go negative 200. Now our clip reversed and it extended. So let's find where we want it to be and let's trim it. As you'll notice too, your keyframes will be out of sync and they will be reversed. Even if they're reversed, that doesn't mean you have to adjust them, because if you did a zoom in, now it'll just be a zoom out and it should look just as good. Now it looks like it flows a lot better. Now I'm going to do this for any other clips that I think need to be slowed down or reversed. Instead of extending your footage and looking to where you want it to trim, we can simply go to this gray area on that layer and we can drag it around. If you do this and you already stabilize your footage, you're going to need to reanalyze again or else you'll get this blue screen. There's one more effect I want to show you, and that's going to be rotation. I use rotation a lot in my footage, so let's keyframe our rotation, press U to see all of our keyframes, make sure they all line up together right at the beginning. So when you adjust rotation, it's also going to be out of frame. So what we want to do is we want to see how much we want to rotate first and then scale it in. Make sure the edges are in frame, go towards the end, and for this clip, since we start at 15, we're going to go to negative 15. Drag that towards the end. If you ever have an extra keyframe like this, you can either delete it to unkeyframe or you can just click the keyframe button. When you loop, you want to make sure you have at least another half of that footage. So let's bring this clip up, let's drag it out so we can see. So this is the length of the beginning of our project, so we're going to want to go to the end, drag this out, and split it. To split, you're going to do Control-Shift-D. Now since this is our beginning footage, we're going to go back to the beginning, press our left bracket, and drag it back down. Now that our loop clip's here, we're going to drag to the end, right bracket, and drag this up. Now there's a little black space here, so all we're going to do is drag this and hold Shift to have it snap to the last clip. Now let's play it over one time and see what our loop looks like.